Well, hello, all you market traders and profit takers. This is the week ending of August 22nd, 2014. I am your Forex University Professor here at yourforexuniversity.com. We're going to take a look and see what's going on, what's happening, where we're going, and make some money. All right, let's take a look. We're going to shift over here and see the weekly on the Australian dollar. Last week we talked about the fact that we had this inside bar. Now we have an engulfing bar of that inside bar, but yet it's still inside of the week before last, which is basically letting us know that there's a little bit of consolidation still in play. However, on the upside to this, we can still see that our parameters that we mentioned last week are still there. As we spoke about the highs around this area here, it reached 93.46 was the high for the week. We talked about the 93.40s last week being a point of resistance, and that's exactly what we saw. And we talked about the bottom part here at the support level at the lows around the 92.30s, and that's where we ended up, the 92.36. So we're still being contained inside of this consolidation. We have this, let me zoom in a little bit closer if I can, to make it easier to see everything. All right, we still are bound inside of this trend line that's on the downward edge, based on the fact that a few weeks ago we had a close below the uptrend line, the upward move that we had here. We still have a little bit of strength in the RSI. We can get rid of that for right now. Give us a little bit more to look at on the chart, and you can see that we still are above that support level here. It's still holding. As you can see, it bounced off of that, and it as well as bouncing from the top. Let's take a closer look in the 4-hour so that we can see what went down with that this week. And we're inside of this gray area. That's all this is. If you notice, I'm going to have to zoom out so that we can do this. As we talked about last week was an up move, and it was bouncing off of the support level here. As you can see, we're at the bottom of that support level. This cold gray area is a area that's holding price in consolidation. We drew that trend line here, showing our move to the upside. You can start it here, or you can start here and then create a running line from there. Okay, but we had the running line going forward here, and we had the remember last week we talked about the close that came below this trend line, and then readjusting the trend line, and we put it to here. Now at this point here, we closed below the trend line, almost at the same point it happened here, only this time we broke it, which started a downward move, a downward trend, as you can see. And from there, it also put us in a position before the week even started with this trend line. Notice that you've got the cross here between the trend lines at 93.38, which is right where we spoke about concerning the 93.40s area here. So what we've got there is that resistance that we had, and that's exactly where we went. And from there, we went down from there until we broke it again at the end of the week, basically. Notice the trend line was from here, but we had to adjust it to here and then to here. Now we're on the last day of the week. We get a break above it and reach the high. And notice we also have support level with this crosshair here and here, and that's exactly where the bottom touched before making its move back to the upside. And it's also, there's some other things that I would love to show you, but that's something that's that's set aside for the paid subscribers. I would be treating them to give you that information that they pay for. So we'll move on. Let's go into this weekly, back to the weekly chart, taken out, and look at what we've got. We've got a doji going on, and we're looking to see if we can get a break above this high and close above this trend line. Speaking of closes above trend lines on the weekly chart, we've got it on the franc here. We have closed above this downward trend line, the longer term downward trend line that started back here last year, sometime in April, I believe it was. Yes, the 19th, the third week of April, was in a downtrend ever since. And that original trend line that took place there uh, had a little readjustment over the last 3 weeks. I remember we talked about Frank a couple of weeks ago, the last couple of weeks, how we had these tops, these spinning tops and tweezer tops, and it looked like it would be rolling over, but we never broke the lows. Therefore, exactly, it made its way to it kept going. And also notice this. Notice that these were closed above this area, this gray consolidation area, 2 weeks until it closed right down inside. It got right in there, but never broke that low. This was a support level at this roughly around the 90-30s, okay, and it made its way on through because what? Ran out of sellers. Conversely, if you look at the euro, as we talked about last week in terms of the buying that was going on, that buying was the buying of those profit takers based on this. Anytime you see this negative 125, that is a point, or even a positive 125 if you're going in the opposite way, in the upward bullish bias. That 125 is a point at which profit taking is taking place. What I'm saying is that yes, there was buying going on because there was selling off of, or should we say, covering. Shorts were being covered for a profit. That's coming from this move that was to the downside here, coming back to the retracement of the 382, where a lot of selling took place in order to short that market because it was bearish at that point. And this was one of the targets areas, the 125. And so we had that for 3 weeks of those orders being covered. Okay, now if it was a situation like I said last week when I said I don't think this doesn't look like the banks buying anything really in term other than covering possibly. There's no buying going on by the banks because of the way I could see that the way it was looking, it just didn't look like a bank buy scenario, which obviously, as we can see from this week, it wasn't, because it finally gave out. They were done covering, and guess what? The market continued on its way down. Now we're at this first real support area that I spoke of last week or two, at this 382 retracement around the 132.30s. We might see it make a move back. However, the only thing with that is the fact that the euro is kind of weak right now. However, on the other flip side, if you look at the euro across the board, it's trying to make some moves back. If you take a look, this is the euro against the pound, and as you can see, it's been falling really hard since last year, and it's continuing to move to the downside. It has reached a somewhat of a bit of a support area, not a very strong support area, but it has broken above a running trend line on its way up to meet this longer term downward trend line. And as far as support is concerned, you can see here it needs to get back around the 7840s area, 7800 area, to call it real support. So it still has room for more motion, it still has room to maybe make its way to this 50. But you know what? We'll watch the quick view, see if we get some turning signals on a daily basis, and see if we can, and even better yet, on a 4-hour chart, look for some type of turnaround. But we want the turnaround to take place at a level that quick view gives us. We don't want to just turn around just for the sake of turning around. And even at the 4-hour chart, you can still see the slowing down of the momentum to the downside here, reaching this 382 area here. So this 132.30s area, I mean, you know, we might see something take a slow up on this move to the downside. It might slow down. You want to keep an eye on it because this 4-hour is your inside track to your weekly. So we're keeping our eye on this, and as you notice, we did have a false breakout here on the 4 hour. It went up and it actually broke that trend line with the close as well as breaching the high, but it fell. If it falls below this low here, you know that was pretty much the end of it. However, it's right at this 382 retracement area, so it's hesitating. If what we have to do, obviously, we're going to readjust this trend line to here, and we're going to look for any type of moves and another opportunity. Sometimes you get this fake down before it moves up. Let's take a look at the strength real quickly, and we've got to try and move a little faster here so that we don't take too much time. For those of you who don't have that long-term patience of watching videos for long periods of time, throw this in here real quick. Well, we've got this move where we came across, came down. Notice that turning around, if we can get some movements back to the upside, this will be a strong divergent to push this back to the upside on the 4 hour chart. We'll see how that works out. Okay, let's get this over here, and we're gonna look at pound on the weekly chart. Let's get back to where we were. All right, now pound. All right, as we said last week and the week before last, the pound is starting to come along with the shorting that's going on. It did reach the 25 retracement. That would have been an aggressive move back to the upside, which it is showing itself not to be the case. We did try and go long at the 165.71, which was the GAN area, which is close to this 165.98. Didn't turn out too good for us. It was at the end of the week, but overall, we still made a good profit on the pound. As a matter of fact, let's take a quick look at the record on the pound. We turned out 180 pips for the week. That's not bad. You do all right. Okay, anyway, closing out here for the week at 165.65. And I'm saying that we'll probably see this 382, just like what the euro is waiting for the 382, which, by the way, the euro is a lot closer to being on the 382 than pound. Actually, it's there now. I'm sorry, that's right. I lost track of which pair was which. Wait a minute. Let's go back to the pound. So, what is our sentiment with the pound? Our sentiment right now is still bearish, obviously. We've got a real strong move to the downside. I mean, it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. 7 weeks of down movement on the pound. Now, that means that we're on the 8th week. And this being the 8th week, that's a Fibonacci number. There's a possibility we might see some pushing back to the upside, and I'll tell you another reason why is because it's not that it's going to be a long trend starting, it's just that there has to be retracement. We haven't had any yet for 7 weeks, so there may be some retracement. When you get too far away from your trend channel, the tendency is for price to come looking for it before it can continue in its direction. Okay, as you can notice on this week right here, about 3 weeks ago, we had some movement coming back up, trying to get closer to this trend channel before it continued its way down. You take a look at it on a 4 hour chart, you can see a little bit better about what I'm saying. Let's go back 3 weeks here. And this is where we started off the week. We started moving up, but we reached that area where we ran out of the buying, quit, and the selling resumed. Okay, and it happened once again here last week, and we gapped up. Started out this week with a big old gap to the upside, only to work its way back to the downside. Because we've got momentum hitting us on the pound. The pound is definitely falling. But like I said, it's going to need to make a retracement at some point soon. And it very well could happen this week. because of the Fibonacci number, because we deal, even though this support area has been breached a little bit, it doesn't necessarily count it out. Keep an eye on the quick view levels and work with them. Look for some signals in the quick view for this week to see if we can get a day or two of some retracement and make a profit off of it. But overall, we are still bearish with the pound. All right. The Kiwi pretty much is similar to the Aussie, but it's weaker than the Aussie. It's just now reaching a close below the trend line here. We need to see what's going to happen with that. Is it going to break that low, or is it going to find a way to return? Let's look at the Aussie quickly because they're very similar in terms of how they work with the dollar. And as I said, this Aussie is much stronger than the Kiwi right now. And we're getting some movement in the Kiwi that's more bearish. But what we would do is look at the Kiwi here and make sure that we don't break this low. If we don't break this low this week, then we're going to readjust the trend line and we're going to look at things coming back. Okay. All right. And now the Canadian dollar is still in an uptrend, has not made a way below the trend line. However, there is a little bit of momentum that's been lost since the beginning of the year. We're looking at also it's broken some of the bearish retracement areas, and it's trying to find its way up here to the 61.80 around the 110 level. That would be a major point of resistance, as you can see from over here. And if it does, then we might see this turn back around, break the trend line with a close, and breach it even, possibly go into some consolidation for a while. The franc, we touched on that a little bit. The franc is showing some strength. The dollar is moving against the franc. It has created a point where it's closed above the trend line. We're waiting to see if it will break it to continue on into a more longer term move to the upside. Look for this level here for a retracement around the 9052 area. This is a possibility for retracement also at the 9097 in a more aggressive move to the upside. And our good old Japanese yen has finally made some moves that we can expect to see something happen. Now, here's the catch. We need to adjust this trend line right here because a few weeks ago we had a close above it but never broke the high. Which puts us in a position to say that now we're in that same position again, waiting to see if we can break this high from this nice move to the upside off of the yen. And as you can see, it did obey this trend line of movement to the upside in this long term. Let's zoom out so you can see it a little better what I'm talking about. See that right there? See this long term? It has finally made its way over to meet it. It took all year, but it's made it there. So we're looking at a very good possibility of a move that will continue on to the upside. Let's see a little bit further. Now see, we've got room over here. Once we get past this barrier, there's room here. As you can see from previous levels, we've definitely got some room where we can go. It can work its way up through all of that, okay? Let me get back so we can see what we're doing. All right, one more time, a little closer. So we're right in this area here, in this is a resistance area, and these are like what they call value area levels. And you notice how they have obeyed it all year. Support, 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 support. And remember, we talked about this quite a few times over the past few weeks, is how this support level has been holding, which made us feel kind of bullish about it, you know, and also let us know that if we broke it and started getting down into this area, we were going to see some bearishness for sure. But It's held. It's made its way over to this trend line, and right at the point where it touched the trend line is the same time we were on support, which is probably why we're seeing such a good move to the upside right now on the Japanese yen, the dollar to the yen. So we're still bullish, and we're going to continue to see how that wave rides on the yen. Go into a 4-hour chart, and you can see how you've got this move that's just working. It's just worked its way all the way across till it got into this resistance area, and then it kind of settled down, and it's moving, but it's looking like it may continue on. So there we have it for the week ending of August 22nd. I'm just going to throw this in here just real quickly, just for those of you who know what I'm doing. You might want to do it too on your charts. Bam. Bam. It's a little soon. You see how that got above the high here. So we're going to leave it right there. All right. 103.46.48. All right. There we have it. Those of you who know what I just did, you go ahead and work with it. The rest of you just keep watching and you'll learn. Eventually you'll see it and you will be glad you stuck in there and hung in there. All right, until next week, this is your Forex University Professor at yourforexuniversity.com. Hoping all the best in your trading, that you will always be profitable.